Okay, let's pick up where we left off last time, which was with false beliefs and intentionality and intersubjectivity. We already talked about this, but just put it up as a reminder. Consciousness and intentionality and social cognition and intentionality are all kind of related here. If you've got a statement about intentionality like Jane believes that something or something is true, then that's a statement about Jane's conscious mental state. That's what's known as first order intentionality. But if what Jane believes is something about what Peter believes or supposes or thinks or wants or whatever, then you've got intersubjectivity. You've got one person trying to understand the mental states of another person, and that's really what social cognition is all about. And as I argued last time, intersubjectivity is really the end state. That's where social cognition is headed. Now, when you look at the kind of traditional cognitive or social cognitive developmental literature, you might get the idea that intersubjectivity really stops with the false belief test, which is something that most normal kids will pass by the time they're aged 5. Well, it turns out not to be quite the case, at least because there's more to social cognition than second-order intentionality. There's more to social cognition than intersubjectivity. As illustrated here, you've got Jane believing that Peter supposes that Sarah thinks that Simon believes that Sarah would like to go out with Peter. Here you've got all sorts of levels of intentionality here. It's all social cognition. It's all one person trying to figure out what another person thinks. But in this case, it's what one person trying to figure out what another person thinks about somebody, what somebody else thinks. And as I pointed out last time, at least in this kindergarten study, people do okay until they get about the 5th level of intentionality. Okay, so you've got somebody thinking about somebody else's thoughts 3 people out, and that's where we begin to make mistakes. And it turns out that that's not just a memory problem, because if you just look at simple physical causality, stories that represent simple physical causality, we can do fine out to at least 6 levels of causality. So it's not just a recursion problem. The constraint on levels of intentionality seems to have something to do with social cognition, with our understandings of other people's states of mind. Let's just stick with second-order intentionality for a moment. We've seen how kids, normal kids, do on what's known as a first-order false belief test, the one where the puppet has put the ball into the oatmeal container and then the puppet goes away, and then the experimenter and the child move the ball from the oatmeal container into the box. Let's look at how the kids do with what's known as second-order false beliefs. So remember, the first-order false belief, Mary thinks that the ball's in the can, but the ball's really in the box. Okay. Second-order false belief tacks a belief on top of that. John thinks that Mary thinks that the ball is in the can, but Mary really thinks that the ball is in the box. So it's John's belief about what Mary believes that's really at issue. Joseph Perner and his colleagues have tested people on these kinds of things by developing a set of stories which are kind of exemplified by what's known in the trade as the ice cream truck story. You've had the Donald story. Social psychology is full of these kind of canonical stories that people use over and over and over again. Perner and Wimmer wrote the ice cream truck story, which goes as follows. John and Mary think that the ice cream truck will stay in the park all day. Okay, so they're in the park and there's the ice cream truck and they think it's going to stay in the park all day. Mary says she's going to buy an ice cream in the afternoon and she leaves John sitting in the park. A little bit later, John learns that the truck is going to move from the park to the church, and because Mary's already gone, she's not present to receive this information. Okay, but later on, through another route, it turns out that Mary learns as well that the truck is moving to the church, but John's not present when Mary learns this information. So now later in the day, John goes to Mary's house for help with his homework. Okay, and Mary's mother says she went to get an ice cream, and the question is, where does John go to find Mary? Okay, remember, Mary said she was going to buy an ice cream in the afternoon. John learns that the truck is moving to the church. He doesn't think she knows that. Mary does, in fact, know that, but she doesn't think he knows that. So now the question is, where does John go to find Mary? Well, actually, you can do both questions. First order theory of mind, where did Mary go to get ice cream? Okay, where did Mary go? She went to the church. Okay, we know that. Okay, but now where did John go to look for Mary? Okay, and it's what Perner and Wimmer did was to ask subjects these questions, okay, to find out how they were handling second-order intentionality, and then they asked them to justify their answers in various ways. So, for example, what they call a belief justification. John would go look for Mary in the park because he doesn't know that she already knows that the ice cream truck has moved. Or there might be a belief information kind of justification, which basically says that John doesn't know that Mary had already gotten this information from the ice cream man. Or there'd be just kind of a simple initial location justification, whereas John believes that Mary said she'd go to the park to get ice cream, which in fact she didn't say. Remember, all she said was, "I'm going to go get ice cream in the afternoon." Well, here's how subjects perform. These are normal intact children on second-order theory of mind, and notice what the age range is. 3, 4, 5-year-olds fail this task. They just can't perform it at all, even though they do fine with first-order false beliefs. They can't handle second-order false beliefs. 7-year-olds have a lot of difficulty here. In the blue, we've got performance with no aids. In the green, we've got performance when you give them a little memory aid. Now, remember, Mary wasn't there when John talked to the ice cream truck the vendor. That memory aid helps performance a little bit, but what you can see here is that the average subject doesn't begin, the average child doesn't begin to pass the second-order false belief test until he or she is 9 or 10 years old. So that's good 4 or 5 years after children pass the first-order false belief test. So if the development of social cognition is the development of intersubjectivity, the development of our ability to appreciate what's going through the minds of somebody else, it's not the case that that endpoint is achieved somewhere between age 3 and age 5, at least as far as second-order theory of mind is concerned. That seems to be something that's achieved somewhere around age 10. And since we know from the Kinderman study that people can handle about 4 or 5 orders of intentionality, you can assume that if somebody tested for third-order theory of mind, think what the ice cream truck story would be like at that level, it would take even longer. Okay, so there's hope for all of us. There's still development after 3. Okay, so adding layers onto the theory of mind is one way in which social cognitive developmental psychologists have tried to answer questions about how social cognition develops. And what happens is we push the development of social cognition forward so that it hasn't all happened by age 5. There's still room to grow at age 10 or 12 or 13 or whatever. The other direction in which research has gone has been to bring the development of a theory of mind back in time to see if we can push the envelope, as it were, to identify aspects of a theory of mind even in very young children. Remember, the standard view is that theory of mind is something that develops around 4 or 5, and it's an old trick, a very honorable trick, a very old trick in developmental psychology to say, oh, you can get this in 5-year-olds. I wonder if you can get it in 5-month-olds or 5-day-olds or 5-minute-olds or whatever. And exactly the same kind of thing happened here. Again, this is work by Joseph Perner, and what Perner noticed was 2- and 3-year-olds, they will typically fail the false belief test. Okay, first order false belief test or first order theory of mind. But if you ask them again, they might get it the second time. Okay, so they seem to be able to have some idea of where things are, even if that doesn't translate itself properly into performance. Here is I think an experiment that really pushes the development of a theory of mind back a long ways. This is work by Onishi and Balergian at the University of Illinois, testing for the theory of mind in 15-month-old infants. Now, what's the first thing we know about 15-month-old infants? They don't have a lot of language, right? So you can't give them the false belief test. You can't have a puppet and a ball and the oatmeal container and a can and all this kind of stuff. You've got to do something different. So what Onishi and Balergian did was to invent a totally nonverbal version of the theory of mind task, in which there's a situation that's basically a false belief type of situation, and there's some behavior that violates the expectancies that have been set up in that situation. And it turns out, as a rule, there are some exceptions to this. I don't want to get into it. As a rule, infants tend to look longer. Even infants tend to look longer at counter-expectational events. So if something happens and surprises them, they'll look at it. Okay. So Onishi and Balergian were able to use this looking measure to make inferences about whether even very young children, 15-month-old infants, are making inferences about what other people think and believe. Here's how they did it. This is one of my Faustian experiments. Okay, I really love this experiment. So here's what happens. Okay, what we've got here is on the first trial, there's an actor. Okay, right here. So there's a stage and there's a screen. There's a typical infant cognition type of setup. And so the first thing the infant sees is this stage that has 2 boxes, a green box and a yellow box, and a slice of plastic watermelon in it. Real watermelon is too messy for use in experiments. And then an actor appears. The screen opens and an actor appears, and the actor hides the watermelon in the green box, not the yellow box. Okay, so that's all the infant sees. Then on trial 2, the actor appears and reaches into the green box and pulls out the watermelon and puts it back in. On trial 3, the actor appears and reaches into the green box and pulls out the watermelon and puts it back in. Okay, so that's to establish that the actor believes that the watermelon is in the green box. That's what goes on in familiarization phase. Okay, then what happens is these kids are divided into 4 groups for what's known as the belief induction trial. And what happens here is that for one group, this is A, B, C, and D. These are a little bit complicated. But what happens up here is that the actor isn't doing anything anymore, but the actor watches, okay, as the yellow box moves toward the green box. That's all the actor does. Okay, that's all the actor sees is the yellow box moving toward the green box. In the true belief yellow condition, what happens is the actor watches as the watermelon moves by virtue of a little pulley system, moves from the green box to the yellow box. Okay, so here the actor is watching this happen. In what's known as the false belief green condition, notice that the actor isn't watching, but what the infant sees is the watermelon move from the green box to the yellow box. Okay, and then in what's known as the false belief yellow condition, this is very complicated. Okay, the actor watches as the watermelon moves from the green box to the yellow box. Then the actor goes away, and the watermelon moves back from the yellow box to the green box. Okay, so if the infant is getting any of this, it's pretty complicated, right? And you're pretty smart 21-year-olds. Okay, it's pretty complicated, but you can kind of understand here that in the true belief green condition, the infant would have reason for thinking that the actor knows where things are and that belief is true. And in the true belief yellow condition, the infant will know that the actor knows that the watermelon is now in the yellow box. In the false belief green condition, the infant's supposed to be able to make the inference that the actor won't know that the watermelon is now in the yellow box. And in the false belief yellow condition, where this very complicated scenario, the infant's supposed to know whether that the actor doesn't know that the watermelon is moved back to the green box. So now what happens when infants just kind of look now on the test trial, where the actor comes in, okay, appears, and either reaches into the green box or reaches into the yellow box. Okay, depending on what the infant believes about what the actor believes, or what the infant believes about what the actor knows, we should see the infant being surprised. Okay, and in fact, that's exactly what happens. Okay, in the true belief green condition, the infant is surprised, looks longer when the actor reaches into the yellow box. Why is she doing that? She knows that the watermelon is in the green box. In the true belief yellow condition, the infant is surprised when the actor reaches into the green box because the infant's seen that the actor knows that the watermelon has moved. In the false belief green condition, the infant is surprised when the actor reaches into the yellow box, and in the false belief yellow condition, the infant is surprised when the actor reaches into the green box. In each of these instances, the infant behaves as if it is surprised, puzzled, looking longer, trying to figure out, wondering why, when the actor engages in something that is inconsistent with what the infant would ordinarily believe is the actor's own beliefs. On these kinds of grounds, then, it appears as if even infants, 15 months old, have something like a theory of the mind, an ability to make inferences about what some other individual thinks and feels and believes and so on. Although they may not be able to express this verbally, okay, they may not be able to handle it when we're dealing with the puppet and the box and the ball and the oatmeal box. Still, evidence like this suggests that this world is not a blooming, buzzing confusion for these infants, right? They've already got something figured out about it, and what they've got figured out about it is something about what the actor knows or thinks he or she knows or believes. So here we've got a nice example of a study that pushes back the theory of mind, the theory of mind, so that it's not just something that you get somewhere between age 3 and age 5, closer to age 5. It's something that you've got at least the rudiments of much earlier than that. Okay, so infants seem to have a theory of mind after all. They have some sense of what other people believe. They have some sense that other people might believe something that's incorrect, or at the very least, they have some sense that other people might believe something that's different from their own beliefs. Moreover, even these 15-month-olds have expectations about other people's behavior, which is that they expect that other people will behave in accordance with their beliefs. They're surprised when they don't behave in accordance with their beliefs. They pay more attention to what's going on. Okay, so now we've seen two ways in which research on the development of a theory of mind, the development of intersubjectivity, has proceeded since the false belief test and the theory of mind that came on the scene. First, by looking at higher levels of intentionality, higher levels of intersubjectivity. Second, by pushing the acquisition of a theory of mind back further and further in time. Next question is, well, let's repeat this experiment with 5-month-olds and see what they do. If somebody hasn't done that yet, I'm sure somebody's doing that. Okay, but there's also other evidence that even very young kids have some idea about what other people believe and desire. Okay, here is another direction in which this research has gone, which is to look for the neural substrates of the theory of mind. This is work by Rebecca Sachs and Nancy Canwisher. Canwisher was the same person who helped identify the so-called fusiform face area. And now this is with adults. It's not easy to put 5-year-olds in an fMRI machine. They're a little squirmy. It can be done, I suppose, but they didn't do that. And what Sachs and Canwisher did was to put adults, college students, in a magnet and ask them to read various kinds of stories. Some stories were stories about true versus false beliefs. So in this story, there's a boy sitting at home at his kitchen table, and he's trying to make paper mache. If you all remember how you used to do this in elementary school, you need water and flour and newspaper and stuff like that. And then he discovers he doesn't have any glue, so he decides to go down to the corner store and get some Elmer's glue. Meanwhile, his mother comes home, sees all the strips of newspaper all over the kitchen, and picks them up and throws them out. Okay? The mother didn't know that the boy was making paper mache, so she thought that this was just kind of junk that he had left around. Or there were stories about mechanical inferences, that there was a tea kettle left boiling on the stove all night. When somebody came down for breakfast, there was no water left in the kettle in the morning. Nothing there about theory of mind, nothing there about anything except kind of mechanical causation. Leaving a kettle boiling, all the water evaporates. And then there were stories about human actions that didn't involve true or false beliefs, about how, for example, a woman was walking to work and she saw a crane in front of her, so she went around it. Right? That's nothing about, no serious reasoning about people's beliefs there. And so what Sachs and Canwisher did was to image adult subjects' brains while they were reading these stories and to try to identify a particular part of the brain, this keeps going out of me, a particular part of the brain that was active when subjects are processing stories about true and false beliefs, but not particularly active when people are processing stories about mechanical inferences or about human actions. And they did, in fact, find such an area here in the junction of the temporal and parietal lobes, roughly where Wernicke's area is. Not Wernicke's area, but it's roughly where it is. You can see it here, okay, right up there in the yellow. This is a rear view of the skull. This is a top, well, actually it's a bottom view of the skull. And what you can see is that this area, especially well, actually in both lobes, is activated when subjects read these kinds of stories. So Sachs and Canwisher concluded that somewhere in the temporal parietal junction is a brain module that is dedicated to reasoning about other people's minds. A brain module that is specifically activated when people do these kinds of things. And they also identified another area in the extrastriate cortex of the occipital lobe that seems to be activated when people are thinking about their bodies. Okay, but we're not going to focus on that. Let's just focus on what they call the temporal parietal junction theory of mind area. Okay. So much of the literature on intersubjectivity is focused on the false belief task and variants on the false belief task. But it's pretty clear that there are aspects of the theory of mind that go beyond the false beliefs. And Henry Wellman at the University of Michigan has kind of produced a catalog of various aspects of the theory of mind beyond false beliefs, and also developed a number of tests that are intended to tap these aspects of the theory of mind. One of these are what are known as diverse desires tests. The child is presented with two snacks, a carrot or a cookie, and then the child has to state her own preference. Would you rather have a carrot or a cookie? Kid picks something, okay, and then the child is told that there's this other person, Mr. Jones, who prefers the other thing, okay, and then the child is asked which item Mr. Jones will choose, and the child is correct if she infers that Mr. Jones will choose will make the choice that's opposite to her own. That child who passes that test has some understanding that other people's desires might be different from his or hers. Here is an analogous test for diverse beliefs. Okay, there's a cat that's hiding, and it can hide either in the bushes outside or it can hide in the garage. You ask the child, where do you think the cat is hiding? The child states the belief, and then you say to the child, well, there's this person, Linda, who believes the opposite from you. Where will Linda look for the cat? And of course, the correct answer is that the target will look wherever the child, the opposite of where the child would look. And that is a simple-minded test that shows whether the child appreciates that other people might have beliefs that are different from his or her own. Knowledge access test. The child is shown a closed drawer and told that there's a toy dog inside, not a real dog, but a toy dog. So the child's own knowledge is that there's a dog inside, and then the child is told about another child, Polly, who's never seen this bureau drawer, and she's asked, what will Polly think is inside? And the correct answer, of course, is that Polly has no idea what's inside the drawer, right? So here's an aspect of theory of mind that talks about diversity, if you will, in access to knowledge, that some people have knowledge that other people don't have. Not exactly beliefs, but knowledge. Here is basically what's known as contents false belief. This is basically a variant on the standard false belief task. Then there's what's known as explicit false belief. Okay, so the child is told about this kid, Scott, who wants to find his mittens. The child is told that the mittens are really in his backpack, but Scott thinks they're in the closet. Where will he look? And the child is correct if she says that Scott will look in the closet because he's going to act on his beliefs. Okay. Belief and emotion, okay? So here's how beliefs can give rise to emotional states. That's another aspect of theory of mind, okay? So there's this child, Teddy, and there's a Cheerios box, says Cheerios on it, but it's actually got rocks in it, okay? So Teddy, we know, likes Cheerios, and he goes out to play, and then he comes back inside for a bowl of Cheerios, and the question is first, how happy is Teddy when he sees the box? The child would say, oh, Teddy will be overjoyed when he sees the box because he really wants the Cheerios, and there's a box of Cheerios.